Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cab and today I'm here to talk about the best books that I read in 2020. And as you all can know that I did not read a lot of books, and this year was not a very reading year for me. I'm still 11 books behind my reading goals, but somehow I managed to read some books that really pleased me this year. So there are 16 books that I want to talk about, and those are the best books that I read this year. So the first category, that is the YA category, that this year I read a decent amount of YAs and I just really enjoyed it because these are really that feel connected. And so in this series, the very first book is Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tommy Adiyami, and this is a YA fantasy book, and this is the second book in the Legacy of Orisa series trilogy. And I just really enjoyed this book because I have read the first one and I just really enjoyed and was happy about it, and I just were waiting to read the second book in the series. So this second book came out last year, and in the first book Jilly somehow managed to bring magic back to the land of Orissa, but in the second book she was just fighting with the monarchy to unite the Majis on the land of Orissa and to just secure the throne for Amari. So I just really enjoyed the second book as much as I enjoyed the first one. So I'm just really excited for the third and the final book because this is a series that I really enjoyed. The second book that I read is Autobiography by Christina Lauren, and this is a Millennial romance about these two boys, Tanner and Sebastian, who come from a different background. One is from the progressive family and he's bisexual and his family just completely support him, while the other come from a community of religious where they just don't support this kind of things. He does not feel independent about his sexuality, and that's why it is a really amazing thing to read because both the peoples were from different category, but somehow they managed to just find a way together. And I just really enjoyed this one because this has a positive vibe in every page I read, and this has some cute and sweet moments between the pages. So I just really enjoyed it and it was a brilliant story. And the next book that I read is Scythe by Neil Susterman, and this is a YA dystopian, and this was a great story. I was not expecting this story to be like that something because I thought that this is going to be another sci-fi, but it was not. It was a fantastic book, and this is about this far futuristic world where people have conquered death, and they just can be only killed by these people known as Scythe, who just choose randomly people to kill, or you can say to glean, as they say in the book, and they just kill people randomly to just overcome the population issue. But this was a brilliant idea, and the story and the concept was so great. I was completely blown away by the story, and I just read and I just hooked up in this book because this was a really amazing and different story, and this was something great that I read and I just really loved it. And this was the first book that I just feel the best of that year, so it was a great. And the next book that I read is The 40 Rules of Love by Elise Safak, and this is a romance novel, and I just really enjoyed it because this was a great story. So this follows this woman, Ella Rochester, in a modern world where she is happily married, had a modern life, and had 3 children and a beautiful house. But one day she got a manuscript, and then her life completely changed because she fell for that writer, and she just left everything behind to just meet him, and there things changed, and it was just a brilliant thought-provoking story because I just find it really a masterpiece. This book gives you a complete peace to your mind and to your soul. This book was a complete masterpiece because this was a very different and unique piece, and I just really loved it. And the next book is Matilda by Roald Dahl, and this was my best book of the last year too, and this year too, because I read it this year and the last year too, because I just love this book. I just really enjoyed it. I just feel like a children's book, but it is not, because every single person can enjoy it, and this was a brilliant story, and I will just suggest everyone to read once in a year because this gives you some positive and energetic vibes, so that you can just cope with this world. And the next book is The Poet X by Elizabeth Esiwado, and this is another YA that I read and completely fell in love with this book because this was a brilliant and a great story, especially the audiobook, because it was narrated by the author itself, and that's make it more special. So this follows this girl Giomara, who is just struggling with her life and her body changes and her neighborhood, because she feel kind of unheard in her neighborhood because people don't really pay much attention to it, and she just feel passionate about the poetry. So she just pour up all her frustrations and her insecurities in the poetry, and just she can just make her voice heard by this poetry. And this was a great book because I really enjoyed it, and I just really loved the character of Xiomara because she is such a passionate and a strong girl. I just really feel that it was a great personality and a great character. So it was a great book that you should absolutely read. Next book that I read was Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo, because once I finished The Poet X, I instantly looked for the other books by this author because she is brilliant and she is fantastic. So I just looked up for this book, and it was recently just released, I guess. So I just got my hands on this and I read it, and it was another a great story by this author. So this followed these two girls, Camino and Yahaira Rios, and when Camino was once waiting for her father to visit her in Dominican Republic, her father's plane get crashed, and after his death they come to know about each other's existence, because they were completely unaware of the existence of other family, because they thought that their father was going on a business, but he has a different family in different countries. So they were just completely unaware of each other's existence, and after his death they come to know about each other. So this story follows how they just come up together and how they just feel each other. So this was a really amazing and great story with a great plot, and I just really loved it. Next book that I read is Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, and this is another romance that I read this year. And this just follow this girl Chloe Brown, who is just chronically ill, and she just has a goal and a plan for her life because she is quite dying, but she just have a very different perspective for her life. So she just decided to get a life for herself. So she just make these plans for herself, and this is the best and cute romance that I read this year. I absolutely love Chloe because she is just charming, cute, sarcastic, and a completely hilarious technical geek, and it was just great reading about her and the guy. What was his name? Red. Yeah, Red is he's absolutely charming and a great personality. So I just absolutely love both of them together because they just complete each other, and that was so cute. And the next book that I read is the second book in the Brown Sisters series. I don't know how many series are there going to be, but the second book is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. And of course, first book was brilliant, so I just jumped to the next book immediately because I wanted to read more, and this was absolutely amazing, like the first sisters story. And this was great also because this has a fun aspect to it, and this follows this girl Danny, who is just living her life completely freely and independently, and she is a teacher, and she was just waiting for constellation to show her a hint that she got her love partner or a person that she can rely on. But then they got famous with a hashtag, and that their story begins, and that was completely charming and absolutely lovely because their chemistry and their story is brilliant. So I just love this book as much as I love the first one. Next up is another fantasy book that I read this year, and that is The Last Namasara by Christine Ciccarelli, and I have already talked about this book, so I will link down that video in the description so that you can check it out. But this follows this girl named Asa, who is also named as Iskari in her kingdom, after the name of a goddess who brings death, just because she hunt down dragons. And absolutely, this is my first book with the dragons, so I have to love this. And I just absolutely love this because the story was great, the plot was great, characters were amazing, everything was perfect about this book, and I just ended up this book in one sitting because I was completely invested in it, and I just really find it interesting. So that was another great book that I read this year. Next romance book that I read is The Gravity of Us by Brittany C. Cherry. It is another romance book that I absolutely love, and this follows this man Graham, who is a bestseller author, and this girl Lucy, who owns a flower shop, and they are very different characters. One does not feel his expressions, or he does not express his emotions because he was affected by a bad past, and there is Lucy, who is all full of life and she enjoy every moment, but they somehow just find their ways together and the story become interesting. So I will say that this book is a complete roller coaster of emotions. There is so many things to just cry about, to laugh about, and to enjoy. So I just feel that this is a great romance book, and that's why I enjoyed it a lot. Next up is my favorite genre, and that is thrillers. So I read 4 thrillers this year, I guess, and the first one that I want to talk about is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right or wrong, but you can see it, the name. So this book was in a lot of hype last year, but I could not read it last year, so I read this year, and I was completely blown away by this story because this has a great plot twist and an amazing story. I was not expecting this to be that great, but obviously this won a lot of awards last year, so this has to be brilliant. This is a psychological thriller about this woman named Alicia Branson, who is an artist, and one day she just shoot her husband on the face multiple times, and after that she just got mum about the things because she don't speak a word after that. And then there is her psychotherapist Theo Faber, who is all set to make her speak and know the truth, and I just completely fell for this book because this was a great story, and the plot twist was like, it just completely blown away because that was great. And this is the best book that I read this year because I'm going to keep it on the top of the list. This is the first and the best book that I read this year, and that was worth the hype. Next up is The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and this is a thriller slash horror book because while reading this I had more horror vibes than the thriller because this was a kind of scary. So this follows this wedding in an isolated island about this Will, a handsome actor, and what the name, Jules, a successful magazine publishers, and they are going to be engaged, but at the night of the wedding someone got murdered, and this whole story just revolved around it, who is got murdered and who killed. So this was a brilliant story, I can say, but I just enjoyed it as much like horror book because I was completely scared by the story and the plots because this was different than what we read in thrillers, and thrillers have the best thing like you can't expect what is going to happen, and if you have expected and it is true, then you have just spoiled it. So that's why I loved it because I did not have a hint about what's going to happen, or I did not have any just thought about it that who's going to be murdered, and it's just complete amazement to know what the ending is. So this was a brilliant one. Next book that I read is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and I just wanted to read this book for a very long time, and finally I read it this year. So this is another thriller that most of the people know about, and do I have to explore because everyone know about it? I'm late reading it, but I just really loved it. This is about this girl Amy who just gone disappear one day, and her husband Nick Dunes is all to blame for because their circumstances were like that he could have done something wrong with her. And I can say that this has a great character because both of the characters were so strong and so masterminds that this just completely take me back because this was a brilliant story. The characters were so strong, they completely outstaged each other and they just play this game very beautifully. So this is a masterpiece that I can't explain because that was great. You need to read it if you have not, because you will be completely blown away by this story because the characters are so great. And the last book that I recently finished is The Archer by Paulo Coelho, and the masterpiece. If you have not read it, you need to read it because this is a so great book that it just fill you with a lot of confidence. And this is a motivational and inspirational story, and this every single word is just inspirational, and you just needed it this year because this year was a complete mess, and this will help you a lot. And this book is so beautiful because this has some beautiful illustrations in it that you will completely enjoy, and it is short to read, so you can just easily finish it in one go. And here it is, just look at the illustration, they are so beautiful because they cover whole of the pages, and that's why it looked pleasing. And I just really loved it because the illustration explain a lot and the words are amazing too. So here you can also see some of this, and they are so brilliant. And this is the great book that I needed this year, and I just loved it because this has a great of inspiration and motivational things that you need to read. So those are the best book that I read this year, and I just really loved each one of them because this one are great. And though I love more books, but that were not up to the list, and these were the fantastic books that I read. If you have read any of those, let me know your thoughts, what do you think about those in the comment below, and we will be just talking about it, so it will be great to know what you think about these books. So that's it, that's why what I wanted to share with you guys, and please let me know what you think, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye guys, thanks for watching.